Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. Tempest, I'm going to send you an invite to see if you want to come up and share it. If not, you can always send me an email too. It's Bigfoot Society. All right, here we go. Tempest, how's it going?
It's going. How are you?
Good.
Okay, so this happened when I was I want to say I was 10 or 11. And I was with my family, and I don't remember all the details of exactly where we were. We were at some sort of national park in might not have been a national park. I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. I was young. I'm trying to think here. It was in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I was visiting. It was northwestern Pennsylvania. It was a wooded area. Maybe it was. I don't even know if it was a national park. It wasn't a national park. It wasn't that big. We were walking through a trail area, and we heard this crashing sound, and this deer came running out, and it stopped. Whatever was chasing, it was very large. It sounded bigger than a cat, or and there's no bears in that particular area that we knew of. And then there was this weird smell, it was such a strange smell. It smelled kind of almost like wet dog and rotting. I don't want to say rotting flesh, but it was a weird smell. And my cousin was completely freaked out, and he said that he'd heard that there was Bigfoot in the area. Now, I don't know if he was just trying to scare me, but that's my Bigfoot story. It's not very exciting. We didn't see anything. We heard whatever the big thing was run off, and we left.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, I mean, it's very interesting because Western Pennsylvania has a ton of stuff going on. I mean, especially if you're if it's Southwest Pennsylvania, there's a ton of stuff that happens down there in the Chestnut Ridge, but also, I mean, the whole western part of the state. So I'm not surprised that, you did. Sounds like you had something weird happen. There's no national parks, of course, but there are definitely a lot of state forests and places like that you could have gone to.
Yeah, like I said, I was so young, and I just can't remember where it was, and I'm so sorry. I know that's not a very good story, but I just wanted to share it because I totally believe in Bigfoot.
The whole reason I do this is so people can share what they experience. It doesn't matter, what I'm trying to say is some people are like, it has to be a certain type of story for it to be on my podcast. I'm not like that. The main reason I do this is that so you have an area to share what happened to you. So I appreciate you coming up and for sharing what happened to you that day. Thank you.
I do have one more.
Okay.
My friend told me, now I live in Indiana now. My friend told me that one time, it's a secondhand story, but my friend told me that one time she was in, and we are in, I'm so bad at directions. We are in northeastern Indiana. And she told me that when she was stopped at her car. Her car was stopped at a railroad crossing, and there was a heavily wooded area. She saw a very tall creature come out, and when it saw like the train and the people, well, the cars, it turned around and went back in to the woods. And she's not sure if she saw, she thinks it was a Bigfoot. It probably wasn't, because I don't think that there's any other sightings here, but it's still fun to think that maybe we have a Bigfoot in our area.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You should go to a good website to check out your area. You can go to bigfootmap.com, the Bigfoot Mapping Project, and you can see where all the reported sightings are. You can look up your area and see if, there's other people that have seen stuff there. I would recommend to do that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little nervous sharing this, these kind of stories, so I didn't talk very well, but thank you for letting me come up.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming up. You have a good one, Tempest.
You too.
All right, good stuff. Thank you. Thank you for coming up, Tempest. That was great. Appreciate you sharing your stories. They were great.
Hello.
Hey, Free, thanks for coming up. Cool. So you were saying that you've had something happen in the Northern California area?
Yeah, dude, I know I sound like a freak. I don't even know how I found your channel. I just was scrolling through and you're like, whoa, okay, this is wild. In any case, yeah, I'm up here in Northern California. If people know where it is, it's Eagle Lake. And I'm driving on the backside of Eagle Lake. And I look off into the forest. And, dude, I don't even know how to begin to explain it. But, we've all seen pictures of the fake Bigfoots or whatever, Sasquatches, of people in costumes or whatever, Halloween-type garbage costumes. This was clearly something other that just was naturally out in the woods, running along in the tree line. And I don't know how to explain it other than it's exactly what we all think Bigfoot would look like. Just something running along the tree line that had a lope to it that wasn't human. And I don't have a whole lot more to tell you other than that, like, I slow down and disappears into the woods and never seen it again. But then I later on talk with people around the area and find out that I'm not the only one seeing this. The Eagle Lake, some people have all sorts of names for it, but the Eagle Lake monster or whatever you want to call it, others have seen this this thing, I don't know what to call it, out there, furry, tall, with a wild lope running around, man. So take it for what it is. I'm not claiming I have any knowledge on this area other than just what I witnessed, which was something very different in the cold of winter.
Oh, wow. So was it running through snow when you saw it running then, or?
No, there was very light dusting on the ground at the time. It was just mostly, but it was cold. I mean, it would be normally what winter, but sometimes we don't have a lot of snow on the ground here. So, yeah, dude, I'm glad I found you. Glad I got to share the story. Not many people are going to believe what I'm saying. Take it for what it's worth.
I appreciate you coming up. I'm glad you found this. And hopefully, if you have anything else happen, you know who to reach out to. So thanks for coming up, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother. Take care.
Hey, Ken, thanks for coming up.
Okay.
Cool. You were saying you had a sighting out in the desert?
Yeah, and it wasn't anything real remarkable. I mean, it's remarkable to see, but there just wasn't anything to explain it. We were out there in between the sand dunes driving down a lease road, and we look over, and this thing, I thought it was a giant guy in a heavy coat at first, but we're 20 miles from anywhere out on private land. and all of a sudden we start to go past it, and this thing's got to be 7.5, 8 foot tall, and we couldn't explain it. We saw it glancing by. By the time we turned around to go back, and mind you, we're out in the middle of nowhere, it was gone. But there is no other explanation for what it was.
Wow. That's incredible. Did you say it was walking or running or?
Well, it was kind of one of those things that turned around as we crested the hill, saw us, and it just looked like it was moving pretty fluidly away from the road, and all of a sudden, it was just gone. And it went away as quick as we saw it.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's an area I've not had anyone reach out about yet. So that's interesting. Right on the border of Texas, it looks like that count is.
Yep. Yeah, so that goes all the way to Carlsbad Caverns. The Guadalupe Mountains is sort of part of that. Or Chavez County is very close. You have a lot of springs out there. You have a lot of the Permian where you have ancient coral reefs and stuff out there. There's a pretty diverse landscape because Lee County is pretty big. There's a lot of large sand dunes, caves, mountains, things like that out in that area if you go far enough to the west.
Then that is a perfect area, especially if there's a lot of caves. That is extremely interesting. It's definitely
here's the really interesting part about it.
Yeah.
Some of these caves, like Carlsbad Caverns, they found connections to those caves all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Up there about Santa Rosa, New Mexico, they have deep water caves that actually move with the tide. And some of these caves in Carlsbad actually connect to caves over by Sonora, Texas, which is 200-300 miles away.
Oh my goodness.
So it kind of may explain how they can move around.
Oh yeah. I mean, who knows where else they could go too. That's really, really interesting to know. Yeah. Thank you, Ken, for sharing that.
Yep, like I said, I couldn't verify exactly, but I can't explain what else it could have been.
Yeah, doesn't really make sense for anything else. So there you go, man. Thanks for coming up.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, Gold Coin, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Thanks for coming up. Sounds like you had some interesting things going on with hunters down there.
Yeah, I live in Columbia, Louisiana. It's really rural. If you look up on it on a map, it's just nothing but forest around. It's right off the Ouachita River, run through basically within 4 parishes. Kasatchie National Forest is just south of us, and there's been, I don't want to say numerous sightings, but quite a few different things that have been going on within the last 10 years that I've lived here anyhow. I work at a local hardware store, so I get a chance to see all the local people. And that's one of the main things that I've always asked, have you lived here all your life? Most of them have. Very few people get out of this area. And I always ask them, have you ever seen or heard anything in the woods you couldn't explain? Obviously, 90% or more are going to say no. But there's been a few that have said, yeah, I had one hunter guy. He told me he got out of his truck, went about 300 yards in the wood line, and he heard a whistle. And he thought there was another hunter to his left. So he kind of horseshoed around to the right about 300 or 400 yards and went back on the trail. And he said he got about another few hundred yards down. He heard another whistle, but this time it was on the right side of him. He was thinking, surely there's not 2 people out here. The area he was hunting at is pretty inaccessible. You have to trek it pretty good ways. So he did another horseshoe to the left a couple hundred yards and kept on going. And then he said he heard the whistle again to his left. He said at that point, he just decided to go ahead and head back to his truck. He couldn't explain it. And, there's no vehicles out there. This is by the Enterprise ferry. So if you look at it on a map, you can see it's very, very secluded out there. But the two people that were hunting the other day that came into the store, they were a couple hundred yards apart. It was about getting towards, dark. They're both end up in tree stands bow hunting. And he said, you just out of nowhere, he heard this rah. He said it sounded like it was about 600 to 700 yards away. And his buddy, who was just a few hundred yards away in another tree stand, texted him and asked him if he heard it. And he said, yeah, what was that? And he said, I don't know, but if you see it, if it comes your way, you've got one shot, which, they're hunting with bows. So, but he said, I've never heard anything like that before, and I don't even know what it is. It's just, there's just a lot of things around this area. I don't ever go in these woods without at least one gun. So I'm not going to say I would shoot it, but,
I mean, I would probably do the same. You're not the first person I've talked to from that area. I had a guy who was going through Kasatchie, and I think him and his buddy were working on, it was some kind of pipeline, maybe.
yeah.
But they were followed the whole time by something bipedal. It was wild.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting. So yeah, I totally am on board with you hearing multiple things from that area. Not out of the question for sure. But yeah, thank you for coming out, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And like I said, there's more. I've got several more that other people have told me. If you're ever interested, I'll keep in touch with you.
Yeah, you're always welcome to. You can shoot me an email. It's right up there, Bigfoot Society gmail.com. You're welcome to send me an email, and we can keep in touch that way.
Yeah, like I said, if you ever look it up on a map and just survey the area, just go 100 miles to the east or west, you'll see it. It's nothing but forest here, and the timber company owns 90% of it. And they'll come through and log it out every 5, 6, 7 years. But my wife is from here, and even she said when she was a little girl growing up, her parents always told her, don't ever go in these woods at night by yourself. So just one of those things that they just didn't do. So yeah, it's pretty wild, that's for sure.
Wild stuff. Well, man, we will keep in touch for sure. Thank you. Hey, RGI, thing coming up.
My family has a lot of property in Big Cypress, and like back in the 70s and 80s, the government started coming in and buying everybody out, and it's kind of close to Billy Swamp Safari, like I don't know, 2 or 3 miles from their safari, where tourists come and stuff. But I was about 12 years old, and my grandma and my grandfather used to tell me stories, when I used to go fishing and stuff like that, to be careful. If you hear stuff in the woods, don't freak out and blah, blah, blah. And I used to sleep in her room on like a fake polar bear rug, because the house was up on stilts and had little limestone rocks underneath the house. And my grandfather had like a little shop. And so I was sleeping on that rug one morning, like I always do. And I used to try to sneak into the refrigerator and like steal bacon and stuff to go fishing. And one morning I woke up because I thought I heard my grandfather up underneath the house, and heard the rocks. And those little knots on plywood, like that's what the floor is made out of. Well, I could see the ground through the floor. And when I looked down, not BSing, I've told my kids this story, I've told my wife, because they've spent time out there. I seen this thing it reminded me of a predator, right? It was all white, like ghost white. It scared me. And there was a gun cabinet in the room that had like a pane glass. And if I rolled or moved, I used to have to be quiet because my dad would yell at me for getting up too early because he was in the adjacent room. Well, when I moved, that glass touched each other, and that thing looked directly at me, and I froze. Like I was petrified. And ever since then, being out in the Everglades, like we've seen stuff riding swamp buggies, you know, stuff moving around in the sky. And
Oh
from that
man.
moment on, I believed in it because I seen it for myself. And
Mm.
the second story is we were on a swamp buggy ride, and my dad was not the best, you know, like he picked on me in front of his friends a lot, you know, and I was always told to be quiet and this and that. Well,
Hmm.
we were all on a swamp buggy ride, and we were going to some old hunting camp that was like way off in some woods by some pond called Tarpon Lake. And as we're driving, we hear this screaming noise, and it's pitch black. So my dad, you know, shuts the buggy off, and we're sitting there for a minute, and we kept hearing it. So he starts down this trail, and it's like full of black swamp water, and we're driving down it, and the screams never stopped. So as we start getting closer to this thing, he finally shuts the buggy off. They hop off. I'm like 12 years old, so I'm like petrified. I'm by myself. I'm in the dark, and this thing's screaming in the woods. And my dad's telling me to calm down. It's nothing. You know, we're just gonna look and see what it is. And I'm screaming, "No, Dad! You know, come back. I'm just, you know, I'm a little kid." Well, I hop off because I didn't want to be left alone, and I was on him. You know, we're walking in about a foot of water, and we come up to this huge, like Florida has these weird pine trees that are, you
Hmm.
know, pretty big. There was a cow up in this tree that was almost split in half, screaming like something put him
Whoa.
in the tree, and it smelled horrible. And as soon as I smelled that smell, that was what my grandma and my grandfather used to warn me about, because they call them skunk ape, right, in the
Hmm.
Everglades. And we actually have a pond back there that this old man for like 30 years used to have a ranger tower, and they said he was a skunk ape man, and he you know, spent his whole life looking for this thing. But ever since that moment, I never heard anything beyond the cow, and the cow was like probably a good 15 foot up in this tree, like wedged in a tree branch. And like I remember
Oh
his
man.
back half split open. I've never seen so much blood, you know, in real life as a kid back then, because I'm 40 years old now, and this was when I was 12. And ever since smelling that smell, I remember any ponds that I'd fish by myself, and it took me a while to go fishing by myself after seeing all this stuff. Like my grandma used to get so annoyed because I'd make her drive me to these ponds, and anytime I was by myself, I'd freak out. You know, I'd always be staring in the cypress and looking for anything, any kind of weird noise. I'd just hightail it back. So yeah, those are my two stories to where, you know, I'm a firm believer in both. I've seen some crazy stuff out there, and those two things have marked me for life.
Uh, that second one, man. That would have affected me for the rest of my life. Whew. Thank you for sharing that, RGI.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Stay in touch if you ever have anything else weird happen. You can always feel free to reach out. My email's up there. But thank you for chatting today, man.
Yeah, no problem. I wish I had some pictures for you.
Right, good stuff, man. That story is going to be with me for a while. Hey, Rekka,
Well,
thanks for coming up. I appreciate that. Awesome. So, what have you experienced, my friend?
so in the many, many years that I've been doing security, currently a director in a company, but when I was boots on the ground, I did in about 2013, 2014, I was a canine handler, and we were doing security on a pipeline up here in British Columbia, Canada.
Nice.
Basically up in the, we'll say the Coquihalla Highway area, so it's up on the summit. And while we were up there, one night, this is about 2 or 3 in the morning, my dog was doing basically donuts in the back of the vehicle. And I didn't, usually when he does that, it's some type of animal. We're talking a deer, it could be a coyote, it could be anything. But normally what we do is we hear a lot of sounds after or during, at least, like bushes moving or something to indicate that there's wildlife around us. But it was weird that night because everything was almost like silent. Like there was almost like nothing, there was no other sounds around, and it was just very odd. So, and usually when you're in that environment, in order to stay awake, you're either reading books or watching movies or something while you're doing, because there's nobody around for like 300 kilometers or in your guys' case 175 miles. So basically we were I was watching a movie, and then I don't know what it was, but my partner at the time just started barking, started going crazy. And I look up and I didn't see anything because the lights were all off. But as soon as I turned over the key and I turned the lights on, about 30 meters away, straight ahead of me, something walked right through my vision from one side of the road over to the other. And in my mind, I'm thinking, is this a reflection from the video I'm watching onto the, like, I'm just trying to analyze every single, because it wasn't a person. There's no, people aren't that big. And so the next day, obviously, we debrief and I tell the rest of the guys on the team and stuff like that. And I'm getting razzed pretty bad, but I'm trying to explain onto like what was going through my mind and what I was seeing. So that morning, so it was a night shift, about 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, we did a shift change. And I went up there, and because the nature of the ground, it was so dry, there was no tracks that I could really see, even when we went into the kind of down by the embankment and stuff. But the dog wouldn't go. I couldn't get the dog to go. And my partner he would go anywhere. He didn't care if it was a cougar, if it was whatever. He would drag me into the bush. But this was the one time that he just wouldn't go anywhere. It was an experience. So what I saw, I don't know. And I can't say whether it was something or not, but it was an uncomfortable feeling for me and at my time, my partner, but it was just very odd. And so that would have to be my experience. Now, to tag on to that, the night, about 4 nights later, again, we're in the middle of the bush. We're on a logging road. There's nobody around. And about 3 or 4 o'clock at night, and take this for a grain of salt or what you will, but all of a sudden the forest just lit up with all these different colors, like blue, green, red, and then it just stopped. And we got out of the vehicle and we just checked around to make sure there was no people around. We couldn't hear anything. The dog wasn't interacting with anything. He didn't smell anything. He wasn't alerting on any senses, nothing. So we said, okay, I got him back in the truck. But an hour or so later, it happened one more time, and then that was it. And it's just like these flashing lights, and then just stopped. And then we did another patrol, tried to find out where it was coming from, but we just couldn't. And you're in the middle of the bush, and all of a sudden this bright light just flashes on. So anyway, that's what I got for those 2 stories. Take them for what you will, but that's what it is.
Do you mind if I just throw some questions out?
Absolutely.
It sounds like it crossed the road pretty quick. Do you remember anything about the way it moved across?
So to me, what I remember is, and a lot of people say it kind of like glides or it has this free motion. To me, it was clanky. Like okay. It was almost like it shouldn't have been there, and it was trying to get across as fast as it can. And to me, what I was thinking at the moment was, I just happened to turn on my vehicle at the exact time that it wasn't expecting to be flashed with headlights, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it didn't look at me, at least not that I remember. But it did go straight across the embankment from one tree line to another and then down into the ravine.
Did it have a certain posture to it as it was crossing?
Very, very rigid again, because it seemed like it was more caught off guard than anything. Like, I don't know how it couldn't have heard the dog barking in the back, because like I said, when the dogs, especially police dogs or security dogs, they'll literally do like these circles around in the back of the vehicle when they alert on something. And so he was going crazy, even more so than he would have heard or smelled a deer or anything like that.
So you're seeing the side profile, definitely not the face though, correct?
Definitely not the face. I did not see, I did not pay attention. By the time I looked up, I saw the body kind of just go past, like, and I would say it was less than 30 yards. It might have even been 20 yards, if that.
Anything about like a head shape or anything like that?
No, negative on that.
Okay.
I think I was more so when I looked at it again with what we were doing and what we were there to do. I think I was trying to process more of what I'm seeing rather than what it is. So like, because as I was looking up, I saw the body, and granted, it had maybe about 10 yards of view, so maybe about 3 or 4 strides, 2 strides, 3 strides, as it went from one end to the other. So,
Was it comparable in size to any other animals that would be out there as well?
yeah. So as a hunter, I've seen grizzlies, I've seen bears, and yeah, if a grizzly could stand on its hind legs and walk across, sure, but I don't perceive that in that type of nature of movement. Like I would
Doesn't make
think
sense.
that no, it doesn't make sense, and especially if it did, that would be a very suspicious way of doing it in that exact location. Like that wouldn't make any sense for the bear to do that there. I've seen bears stand on their feet and walk for a good, again, 10 yards, 15 yards. That's not abnormal. But why would you do it across a road in that exact moment? That seems a little coincidental, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. Did this encounter, this sighting you have, did it affect you in the years after this happened, or in any way?
No, negative. It was more
Okay.
I just thought of it, and like I think that because the nature of work that we were doing, it was kind of just move on with it. I think the lights more the next day confused me, and I know people don't really. It's not really association of the Bigfoot to lights all the time, but it was just very odd how all those incidences happened in the same day. And you know what? I could have been sleep deprived. Who knows? But when the dog alerts the way he did, that was an indication that something wasn't right. And it was odd because, again, like I said, he was alerting on other animals throughout the entire project. But during that day and the few days around that day, he was alerting a lot more, and it was a lot more aggressive. It felt like more, somebody's watching you or something's around you that he wouldn't have acted the same way if it was a person. If it was a person, they tend to have these very distinctive alerts, and then same with animals. But when he's just spinning around in his kennel and just the whole vehicle's just shaking, that's obviously a sign that the dog's noticing something a little bit more is going on. And he did that a few times before the days, or the day before and that night, and then the night after. So I don't know if maybe there was something else out there, but he definitely knew that there was something that wasn't right with the situation.
Wow, that is. I'll be honest. It's not like just that visual in my mind of you turning the lights on, and then as it's crossing the road. That's just, to me, is just horrifying for some reason. Like that would be hard to get out of my mind. But yeah, thank you for sharing what you experienced that day.
So I do have a caveat to that.
Yes.
Recently, we actually designed a outdoor app that's based on AI that takes pictures of tracks, like footprints, and it'll tell you what kind of animal it is. And we also do all this other stuff. And it's a tracking app. It's meant for hunting and camping and hiking and stuff. So what we've done is we've taken it outside, and there was the reason I actually one of the reasons why I designed this app was for the hunting purpose. But when I was out, I found this one track and I couldn't decipher what it was. And again, I'm a hunter, so I very well know the differences between tracks to an extent. But there was this one track about 2-3 weeks ago that I didn't know. And I took our app out and I tried scanning it, and it wasn't reading it. And it looked to me like it was a bear, like something larger than a bear, but it wasn't a bear. And so we tried to break the app to find out if we could use it for our case studies for Bigfoot or for other types of anomalies that are out in the woods. And so we've been testing it. And when we did it on that track, again, it was just very weird. And it was in the same kind of area where up top on that same kind of mountain bend where the Coquihalla reaches the summit. And that summit area is not the highest in BC, but it's one of the highest roads that leads kind of to the interior. And it's very weird because we hear a lot of anomalies, so to speak, especially good stories about Bigfoot in that area. So we've been trying to test it and find out why it's not reading the footprint as it would. So it's just interesting to see it fail on specific tracks. Like it's interesting because it's to notice what are distinctive tracks and what aren't. So anyway, just thought I'd bring that up because it's a good tool, and I think that maybe some of your viewers might want to use it when they're out in the wild.
Yeah, what's the name of it?
It's called Dryads. You can look it up at dryads.app, but we can talk offline about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Might be easier.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's extremely interesting because you would have to train it on certain things in order for it to realize it's a Bigfoot track, right?
Yes, and what we cater to is obviously people who are hiking, camping, whatever else. But we feel that because of the nature of the information that people that are out looking for Sasquatch or Bigfoot or however you want to define it, the amount of data that they're putting into finding this information is extremely important to all of wildlife management and for conservation as well. So all those people that are out there that are gathering information for Bigfoot, I just want to say hats off to you because you're doing a bigger service than what you think you are.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would definitely check this out. And can you send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com?
Absolutely. Absolutely will.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. No, thank you for sharing what you experienced. And it looks like a pretty cool app. I'll definitely be checking it out. I recommend other people do that too. But yeah, thanks for coming up, man.
No problem. We'll chat later. And I hope, love hearing all the stories you guys are doing.
Cool.
It's awesome. It's good to hear them. Have a good day, guys.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yes. Oh my goodness. I almost killed my phone. Yeah, dryads.app. So check it out, guys. It looks like it's got some cool features to it.
Listener discretion is advised for the rest of the episode. The following interview contains material potentially not suitable for a younger audience and language that has not been edited.
Let's see. I'm going to bring up Mr. Thomas here. Hey, Thomas, welcome. Do you have a sighting or an encounter to share?
I have an encounter that I'd like to share, but I emphasize more on my contact with Professor Grover R. Krantz of Washington State University.
Oh, cool. Do you mind if I potentially use this audio for my podcast?
Sure, go ahead. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
What wanted to say was we had devised a system where we would take a female gorilla during her time of let's say during her period, and would take the blood sample.
Yep.
And then we would take it and plant several blood samples in different areas. And then we would monitor the area. We did draw in several sightings, and it was never recorded, but it was eyewitnessed by myself and a few other people.
Thomas, what year is this?
1970.
Oh my goodness.
And it was never published. It was kept secret by ourselves because we didn't want to be laughed at during the time.
Whoa.
Okay. But it's all verifiable. And you may contact Professor Grover R. Krantz if he's alive yet. I don't know. This is over 50 years ago.
He unfortunately is not alive.
Okay,
he has passed on, yeah.
But anyway, I'm 77.
going on 78 years old, and I thought I might want to pass this on before I'm gone.
Yes,
But
please.
okay, we were up in I went to Washington State University, contacted Grover R. Krantz. We went out and placed several female gorilla menstrual cycle blood in several locations. We did draw in. We had 2 sightings at that time, and it was a highlight of my life to witness something that extraordinary. But that's the only thing I can say about it. And I hope your listeners continue their investigation to this phenomena. It's not a lot of people. There's so many speculations out there, but once you see one physically, I was less than 50 yards, and it scared the hell out of me. Yeah, and this creature, I'll call it creature, because there's a lot of people say, well, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, all this stuff. I've got quite a bit of knowledge about it, but I just don't want to come out publicly because number one, you look like a damn fool, and you're delusional, or you're misinterpreting as a bear sighting or something like that. But everything I say is fact, and I just like to emphasize: do not give up. It's possible to capture one alive. I don't believe in killing one, but Grover suggested we kill one, and I said, "You're defeating the purpose by killing it,
right,
and not observing it." And we got into a little bit of a dispute over that. I'm totally against killing something that you cannot actually identify until you research it and find out exactly what it is.
Sure.
There's no use killing a specimen when it's not even accurately identified within the anthropological world. So that's what I did.
So I got a few questions for you,
Okay.
Thomas, and you can decline any of them, of course. But so you had other individuals that were with you in this expedition where you were putting out the gorilla blood?
Yes.
Are you able to share who those individuals were, or you choosing not to?
No, I can tell you
Okay.
their names. I can.
Okay.
One of them was Jerry Dollar. Jerry, and the last name is Dollar.
Okay.
Okay. The other one was Greg. Last name of Ragsdale. And the third one was Timothy. I forgot his last name, but Tim.
Okay. And you guys all had sightings?
We were all witness to it. We all stayed together. We never separated because because we were not terrified, but we were very cautious not to be where one would see something and the other one not. And we wanted to verify to ourselves, actually, to say, did we actually see what we saw? And so we all compared notes at the same sighting. We didn't want to be delusional or be
Right.
ridiculed in any way, shape, or form. So we all remained silent. And that's the end of the story, basically.
Wow. You said year was 70?
1970, yes. 70 to 71.
So this is 3 or 4 years after Patterson-Gimlin, and about the same time that Ron Moorhead was filming or recording the Sierra Sounds. More or less. Take a few years. Did you say this happened in Washington State?
Yes. I went up to Washington
Okay.
State. I contacted Grover R. Krantz, We formulated this plan together, and we've carried it out. And we got the samples from we got the sample from the San Diego Zoo. We didn't want to become part of anything. We just wanted to prove to ourselves that what you call Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or whatever it is, well, we wanted to compare to the sightings that's been in Tibet, in the Himalayas. We wanted to compare everything that some people say they've sighted, and compare it to what we witnessed. And what we saw, we'll call it Bigfoot. I call it a creature because I've seen the cast, I've seen the foot cast, I've seen a lot of them, and we took plaster casting of it, and Krantz had it, the castings, and he took it back for the study, and I didn't know what happened to him after that. So he said, "Can I have these?" And I said, "Sure." I can't do anything. I can't do any research with them. I'm not qualified.
Right.
So he was the anthropologist. He taught anthropology. He had a PhD in anthropology, but nonetheless, I was nothing more than a tracker. I was a tracker. And that's what I did best.
Can you share what part of Washington this happened in?
Down by the Spokane area, in the vicinity of Spokane.
Let me bring that up real quick. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So you go to this area in the Spokane region. You take the blood, and then you said you pretty much put it in an area, and then how long did it take until they showed up?
Actually, it was about, let me see, we stayed in the area. We gave it each area. We spent 72 hours in different areas just to have it located. So we wanted to make sure that but it drew in let me tell you something, it drew in more than just a Bigfoot. We had brown bears and black bears come smell of it, the samples. We've had even we had raccoons. Raccoons would crawl up the tree and smell it, and then crawl back down. But it drew in a number of animals that would, because of the scent, they would catch wind of it. Deer would smell everything. It was something unusual, but it was actually that of a female gorilla. I could only I stayed up there actually a week because of my work and everything. So after a week, everything was turned over to Professor Krantz, and we shook hands and said goodbye. I said, "We'll do with it whatever you need." And I was out of the picture, and I never did contact him after that because I thought that he was doing his research in regards to your so-called Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
So you put
the samples.
The samples from the gorillas, were they like put on a log, or like how was it put out there?
We put it on. We tried a tree, we tried a rock, and we tried down by the river basically because of the water source. And we put it on just an old stacked up like wood and stuff along the banks, and that's where we put it.
So the area where you had the sightings, it was old stacked up wood by the banks.
Back by the river, the little river, area. He picked the area, and I went along for the ride. But what we did was, to basically be honest with you, I didn't know where the hell I was because that was an unfamiliar area for me. Because I went up there to visit him. That we went out, and that was all on Professor Krantz. Because he knew where he was, he knew what he was doing, but I'm the one that made the suggestion. This is why I accompanied him. I said, well, why don't we try this? And he said, that's not a bad idea. And so that's what we did. We accomplished that.
So, sorry, you made the suggestion to use the specimen,
Yes, that's correct.
blood.
That's the
That
only
was on
thing I had to
you.
do with it. That's the only thing I had to do with it. And I did accompany him, and we went on a little 3-day outing, you might say.
Right.
And that was the end of my story. My end of the fame. My claim to fame was over in 3 days, but that's it.
Now, you have it on the old logs, and were you like hiding in the woods waiting for something to come, or like what was the situation
Yes.
when
In
one
the
actually
daytime,
showed up?
actually, we would actually climb in trees to get out of sight, and we would observe the point of where we had to lay descent.
Okay, how high up were you?
Well, I was up at least. Let me see. I'm not a very good climber, so I was up about 15 to 20 feet.
Okay.
That's all.
And did you like tie yourself in, or were you just like holding on to
No, I was in
something?
between the branches, and I was
Okay.
dressed in camouflage, of course, and we did it, and we put on deer scent of ourselves. We smelled like deer, and you can do that for
Okay.
100 cent, and so that's what we
Yep.
used to help to kill our own scent. So basically, that's what we did, and I just thought I'd share that with you before I pass on, and give you some kind of idea what we were doing.
It's an amazing story. Can you take me back to when you're in the tree and the first time you see that Bigfoot show up? What was it that you remember seeing
What I
when you
what
see
I
that come in?
what I found most fascinating about it was bipedal. I thought it would be on all fours or crawling along the ground like a regular primate or something like that, but it never went into that position. It was totally upright in a walking position. From what I could see, it never went down on all fours. It always stood up. And that's what fascinated me. I thought it would go into a primate position and start running or something like that, but it was always standing up and always walking with a lot of strides. Well, lengthy strides, let's just say. And Krantz, he got all excited because of the footprints was left behind. And then he had brought along the material to take foot samples, to lay down the plaster casting, and he did all that. But he walked away with about 4 or 5 plaster casts, and he took possession of them, and he had a variety of them, so he could compare. Apparently,
Wow. But he was not with you that day. It was you and the other 3 individuals, right?
he was. We were there. Like I say, I only had 3 days. I was with him for 2 of the 3 days, and that was it. And then he left on the 3rd day because he had obligations to teach classes and stuff like that.
But he was not there when the sighting occurred.
No, he was there. No, he was there on that day. That's why
Did he have a?
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did he have a sighting?
Yes, he did. He recorded it and everything. He can verify that because, see, there was a great big controversy on that, and they were saying that he Krantz was promoting his own theory, and we had said no, he saw it. We saw the same thing we saw.
That is man, I need to check with someone, right? So I
Go
think
ahead.
most people think he never saw one, right?
Most everybody thought that he was never a witness, but he did witness.
Because you were there with him.
I was within 200 feet of him from a different tree angle, yes.
Did he actually say to you something to the effect of, I saw one, or, yeah, did you see that, or something like that?
Yes, we got down and
Oh my
discussed it. And he
goodness.
said, Grover. Now Grover was number one. A lot of people thought Grover was a crazy son of a bitch, but he wasn't. Okay,
No, no, he wasn't.
okay, by far. But Grover now, he was a very scientific. He was very straight up person, and we sat around and have a cup of coffee and things like that, and we talk. He said, you're going to be classified as crazy as I am. And I said, well, perhaps, maybe, perhaps not. I said, but I know what I know. And I said, I came up with this ideal. And so far, we've drawn in some sighting, but I'm not. We had maybe what they call a near sighting, where we thought we saw something, but neither one of us could actually say, yes, we saw something. So you don't want to lie about anything like this, because if you lie or you hallucinate or I want to see something like that, you become, an unreliable source. So you just keep quiet. That's all. So I've taken up enough of your time. I shared my story with you, and I'll let you get back to whatever you're doing.
Thomas, and I don't want to push, but if you have extra time, I do have extra questions for you. This is a super important story.
I got plenty of time.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm 78.
All right.
I don't do nothing, but I do a lot of research of my own, but not in that regard. Since that time, I went and I went back to college and things like that. I was a young man back then, God, young man. And but anyway, go ahead with your questions. I'll answer them if I can, truthfully.
So it sounds like Dr. Krantz definitely had the sighting of the same creature that you had.
Absolutely.
Were you able to see anything about its face when you saw it come in?
Well, I did, because I had a pair of binoculars with me. And so did Krantz. Let's not be, no. We both had our $29.95 binoculars with us, little 3-part, but we did, yes. And the other guys that was, like I mentioned, Jerry and Roger and stuff, yes, everybody had binoculars on them. Not the best in the world, but they were useful.
What kind of things did you notice when you looked at the face of it through the binoculars?
Well, the one I really noticed, it was they had very human-like features, but at the same time, how can I put this? A primitive facial structure. Everybody knows about the Neanderthal and the Cro-Magnon and the Java man and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I found it more closely related to the Cro-Magnon.
Okay.
Okay. That's my own personal view. That's not verifiable. I'm not going to commit to anything, but my personal view of it was the Cro-Magnon look. And but as far as height-wise goes, I can verify that the son of a bitch was like over 8 foot.
Oh, wow. How wide were the shoulders?
At least 3 foot. 3 foot, 4 foot, maybe. The dimension-wise, it equaled out because Krantz did the calculations on it. He said that's for height and weight and perspective. He said, and he estimated around anywhere from 300 to 500 pounds. So that was his calculations, not mine. I didn't know how he came out with that calculation. So,
gotcha.
But he did. So I was not. That was not my expertise. I was just a tracker. That's all.
So when it was coming into the area, obviously smelling what was going on, what was the emotions it had, or how was it acting?
It was acting just like it was very alert. Let's just say that the constant head twisting, observing his environment around him, I guess you might say. But he was very aware of every sound, every movement. And that's why we went up high. But that didn't seem to have any effect on him because he was at eye level. He never suspected, or it never suspected, that we were in an elevated position observing it.
It wasn't looking up. Gotcha. When it would twist its head, did it have to twist its head
The shoulder,
at the neck
yeah.
or the
No,
whole
he
thing?
the whole shoulder body would move. Yes.
Right. Good.
For some unknown reason, his neck ratio moved at the same time his shoulder did. He couldn't twist his neck like we do.
When you saw it walking, did you notice anything peculiar about its gait at all?
You know, beside the length, maybe his steps. We calculated what, Krantz, if I can remember, at least 5 foot in his step length.
Okay.
He'd take a step and it'd be about 5 foot. Yeah. No, about 4 foot, something between 4 and 5 foot, you know.
Okay. Was it making any noise at all when it came in?
No noise. Very, very silent. Very, very silent. In fact, I'm not the very first one to spot it. Jerry was, and he had most hand signals, and we in that direction. Then we picked it up on. Everybody picked it up.
Gotcha. Any smells at all when it came in?
Yes. The very stinky, wet, skunky smell, maybe. But it wasn't a skunk. It didn't smell like a skunk. It smelled like a very. Have you ever smelled a wet rug?
Sure.
Or a wet mop? Something in that area.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Gotcha. So it gets to the area with the specimen on the old old wood.
Yeah.
What does it do when it gets there?
It drew it in. It actually drew it in to our surprise. Okay. Very, very surprised that it would lure it in that close. And it was aware of that particular specimen because it went back, it smelled of it once, walked away, and then came back and smelled it again. And then in our view, and this is just strictly my personal interpretation of it, was yes, the experiment worked. And that was the conclusion of it. And he was writing down in his notes and stuff like this what we had observed, and I didn't know he'd passed, but I'm sorry. I never kept in contact with him after my 3 days with him because and it's verifiable. I have letters and stuff like that. But anyway, I thought I'd share this with you and your listeners, so to bring something enlightening to it's a very monumental fact that they are out there. They are among us, you might say, up in higher elevations and stuff. They do exist, and anyone that observes them, they're not delusional. Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you called in. So, did you say you have letters regarding this whole?
I have communication. I've packed them away somewhere in my old baggage and stuff. But I have my one letter where I shared it with Dr. Krantz, and where I have the invitation to come up to visit him. Yes.
Oh, wow. if you are ever this is just to the side, but if you are ever wanting to donate anything like that that is related to Bigfoot history, I would recommend that you contact the North American Bigfoot Center, Cliff Barackman's Bigfoot Museum in Boring, Oregon. They would
Yeah.
love to have artifacts like that, to be honest.
This is going back to 1970.
They trust me, they would love it. They would adore it, Thomas.
Well, okay, if you don't mind, give me a couple days to dig it out and to find it. It's been
All right.
it's been 50 years since this. So okay, I might do that to bring his legacy to people to remember how great of a real man he was. A good guy, he really was. I knew him. So.
Just to let you, so I just want to tell you one more thing about what happened to Dr. Krantz before you go.
Yeah.
So he passed away on February 14th, 2002.
Wow.
He had given his body to science.
Oh,
and
okay.
He had that large dog, right?
Yes.
The extremely large dog. So him and his dog were given to science, and the Smithsonian actually took both of the bodies, and you can see, I forget exactly where it is, but you can see the skeletons of both, and you can look this up on the internet.
I got my phone, and that's all I need. I don't have. I am not computer literate. I'm old school, so this is it. But I appreciate that information, and I will give me a month or so or a couple of weeks. I have to go through all my documents and stuff, but I will find it.
Yeah, Thomas, thank you so much.
But anyway, I get out of the way. I appreciate you allowing me to tell a story.
Here at Bigfoot Society, our goal is to provide a platform for those that have encountered Bigfoot to share their encounter in a safe and respected environment. But we need to hear your story. If you've experienced something that you just can't explain, please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Then we can start the conversation. And I know a lot of you have not shared your encounter at all. It's been 20 years, and it's time that you get this off your chest, and then you can get some well-deserved rest, because I know you haven't been sleeping. I understand what you're going through, and I appreciate every one of you listening.
Bigfoot Society podcast, hosted by our captain, Jeremiah Byron, where it's all Bigfoot all the time. Have you ever had the urge to do more, to be more? Now you can by joining Bigfoot Society on the Patreon. Get ad-free episodes and even member-only episodes. Take part in movie night and even live video chats. Interact behind the scenes with Jeremiah and other Patreon members like me, Slaya. The powerful podcast goes on, and you may contribute a verse in our Patreon community. Carpe diem. Seize the day, Bigfooters, and make your lives extraordinary.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list.
These are all in Oregon, by the way. Oak Ridge, Dexter, Fall Creek, Deschutes National Forest area, Cultus Lake, Spirit Lake, Subtle Lake, McKenzie River area, Sweet Home area, the area west of Crater Lake, east of 230 West Diamond Lake Highway, and north of 62 Crater Lake Highway.
You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.